My name is Sean Horton. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, moved to Seattle, and have been there about a decade. I am the director, curator, financier of the Decibel Festival. So I basically run the show for Decibel. I have various people that work with me on the festival, but for the most part I'm making the decisions creatively in terms of the artists that we book and working out all the details, organizing meetings, working more directly with venues, okaying the marketing and promotion that the branding sort of embraces. And do that part-time. I work full-time doing something else, but Decibel is sort of like my creative endeavor, not my financial endeavor, if that makes sense. I have always been in love with music. I'm a musician going back, being age 10, I started playing guitar. So creatively, I've always had a very strong musical drive. I went from bands to turntables when I was in high school and started exploring electronic music through the art of DJing and promotion and production. So I've been a DJ and promoter through high school till today. I'm 31 now, so going on 16 years DJ. My professional background after college, I studied audio engineering in college. After college, I went into marketing and promotion, and that's sort of what I do today. I have a day job now. I've been at for 5 years, and I'm a senior music programmer at a company called Play Network, and my job there sort of pays the bills for Decibel. So I'm sort of living a double life, one very creative and feeding the other one, which is not so creative. So they kind of live together. So that's my background. Music basically is my background. MUTEC, this is my 5th year at MUTEC, and considering Decibel's celebrating its 4th year this year, you can sort of see the relationship there. I was heavily influenced by festivals like MUTEC and DMF movement and Sonar, and I think MUTEC being in closer proximity and exploring the same sort of music that I listen to and enjoy. As a curator, there's a very close sort of symbiotic relationship, and part of me coming to MUTEC is to discover new music and work with the organizers here to help promote MUTEC in Seattle as well, which has been my role for the past 3 years. I've promoted MUTEC through flyering and just sort of talking up in Seattle, and there's been a very large Seattle community coming out from MUTEC based on that. So I would say we're a sister festival, maybe a sister city in a lot of ways. I don't know if Alon would agree with that, but based on his comments and our interactions, I think we're both very much in the same sort of mind state as far as where our festivals are going and how we want to curate them. Structurally, well, historically, let me start there real quick if I can. We've done 4 days and about 90 acts, and it's been a lot of acts. And it's always in middle to end of September. We started out the end of September, moved it a week ahead, 4 years, 2 and 3, and this year we're going to be September 21st through the 23rd, 3 days as opposed to 4, so we're shrinking it down 1 day. And instead of using 6 or 7 venues, which we have in the past, we're only going to use 4 this year. So we're paring it down mainly because we want to be able to grow out organically and also become a nonprofit agency. Work with a 501c3 status in the U.S., which will help us get more funding. So this year we're not, not-for-profit. We're actually a for-profit organization, and that being said, all the money comes out of my own pocket. So this year we're kind of toning it down a little bit in terms of the amount of artists, probably 40 versus 90, and amount of venues and days. So structurally, we're a little smaller than we have been in past years. Last year was our most successful year. We had 10,000. This year I would expect maybe 5,000 to 7,000, depending on how many venues we sell out. The majority of the people playing are definitely from the U.S., United States, and that's sort of what differentiates us, I think, from festivals like Sonar and MUTEC, which are predominantly like Canadian and European. I'm trying to get exposure to labels and artists in the United States, and there's obviously not as big a movement in the United States as there is in places like Europe. So we do book a lot of people from Berlin, Thomas Feldman, Apparat, Mono Lake, Richie Houghton if he's still living in Berlin. Artists like that, we book them to headline events, but then we fill it with, predominantly United States or Canadian artists. So I'd say 75% of the people performing are from North America, and probably about 50% are performing from the Northwest, which is, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, which, those three cities are all in close proximity. So I like to call it Cascadia, but, it's basically Canada, Washington, and Oregon, Vancouver area. I'd say that the rave movement, sort of, in terms of what I do in promoting electronic music, the rave movement really was, it sort of built and then destroyed electronic music and the digital nature that it, prevailed, visuals and, really technical art. The rave movement sort of like in the United States kind of died, and we're post-rave, if that makes sense, in terms of we're the people that were going to parties back in the day, seeing Richie Hawtin in the early 90s or whatever, and now we're old enough and business savvy enough to continue on with a less self-destructive sort of identification of electronic music and visual art, because we both do, we're very much connected to the visual art community. Every show that we do has a VJ or some sort of live visual art. We do installations, So that being said, Seattle, I can't speak for the rest of the United States, but Seattle is on board with cities like Montreal and Berlin even, in terms of the acceptance of, electronic music and digital art is high art. You can see it in a theater, you can see it in a club, and you don't do drugs, you just drink and enjoy it and talk about it afterwards. It's what needed to happen in order for electronic music to sustain itself, because it was like disco. Disco died because it became such a drug-addicted culture, and then, there was a backlash against it. The same thing happened with electronic music in the United States. Techno had a very bad connotation attached to it, and we're trying to rebrand it in a much more productive light and creative light. And I think the more that we do that, the more the rest of the United States, the rest of the world will realize that. I would just like to say that, I've just got back from Movement. This is my second festival in, about a week, and I can say for sure that North America is on board with electronic music and electronic music culture, and it's not just Europe pushing the boundaries anymore. It's definitely the United States and Canada, and I'm happy to see. I would just like to say that, I've just got back from Movement. This is my second festival in, about a week, and I can say for sure that North America is on board with electronic music and electronic music culture, and it's not just Europe pushing the boundaries anymore. It's definitely the United States and Canada, and I'm happy to see that.